Hi, everyone. Professor Philip Travis. And this week, the subject of our discussion and of our readings and also of our weekly lectures is European exploration and particularly the colonization and conquest in the Americas. This process, the Americas being known as the New World, because at this time the Americas had not been formally incorporated into the rest of the global world system, if you will. Even though things were not connected with the speed that they are today, the world was connected in the period of the European Middle Ages. There were long distance trade routes that connected China to the Middle East, to North Africa, to the Mediterranean, and even to Western Europe. And these, of course, took a long time for trade to occur, and things had to pass through many hands. But Africa, the Middle East, Asia, Europe, these areas of the world were connected during the period of the European Middle Ages. The Americas, of course, North, South, Central America, and the Caribbean were, of course, not interconnected formally into a global world system. And so this week we are looking at this development in history, which historians usually call the Columbian exchange, the exchange of plants, ideas, diseases, animals, people, and so forth between the old world and the new world. That begins really with the arrival of Columbus in 1492 on the islands of the Bahamas. And this, of course, sets in motion a process of colonization, of intermingling, and of conquest in the Americas, which is going to be the focus of our discussion this week, as well as our recorded lectures and our readings. This development, historians really chart the origins of what we being historians, call globalization from this development, the point where which the world began to truly develop a global world system in which people, in which economics, movement and trade and so forth became interconnected in the origin of a formal world economic system. So we're really looking at the roots of what historians see as true globalization. Now, what we're probably going to be focusing a lot on too are the circumstances, how this occurred historically, and the ramifications that this carried for the world. This very much created the modern world, but it also came with a great deal of loss of life, enslavement, and destruction. Environmental destruction, massive pandemic disease, epidemic disease across the Americas, particularly smallpox, negatively affecting native populations in an almost inconceivable level. The enslavement of native peoples, the ultimate enslavement of thousands of African peoples that were then forcibly taken across the middle passage of the Atlantic Ocean and forced into very harsh slave conditions, particularly the slave conditions of the sugar growing areas of the Caribbean and of South America. So this is a very significant event in history, and one that has created the modern world, but which did so at a cost, a massive human cost to peoples in the Americas as well as in the old world. So this is our subject for this week. The factoid for this week is going to be a video that is coming just after this. It's a shorter video, but I've been trying to show some of these sort of first-hand video accounts that I like to share with you, and I hope everybody enjoys these. It's short. The clip is only about 3 minutes after this, but it's about Native peoples in Florida, particularly the collusive Native Americans. And this is why you see this map here of of Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, giving you the general route of the expedition of De Soto, the conquistador, the Spaniard who first pursued exploration and conquest in Florida. And you can see where it says Calusa, and you can see that first arrival point. And so that first arrival point, which you see right here, I think my cursor is going to show up. That first arrival point is where this video is from. And I will note I'm standing on a shell mound. The Calusa were known as the shell people in a way, because they were the first people to massively collect shells and use them for tools and all types of things. They built these large mounds which they lived on and around. I'm referring to them as a burial mound, and truthfully, they're archaeological sites, and burials would have occurred in and around these mounds, but they shouldn't be thought of as singularly a burial mound. So I apologize if that is somewhat misleading. But I hope you enjoy this, and just send me a summary of the video that follows. Send me a summary of that video no later than Wednesday by midnight.
Hi everyone, this is Phil Travis, and today's announcement, this week's announcement, comes from the Fort Myers Beach area. We are at an ancient Calusa burial mound, which makes up the highest point actually in the Fort Myers Beach area. The Calusa were an indigenous Native American tribe that used to control much of the region of southwestern Florida. They used dugout canoes that were created with shell tools and the use of fire as well to help dig out solid wood canoes that they would then use to move throughout southwestern Florida on the rivers. And this area is an area of a burial mound, and what behind you, it doesn't look that huge, but behind you, this kind of rounded up area, which makes up almost 3 acres, is an ancient Calusa burial mound. The Calusa, inhabited this area for some 800 years prior to the arrival of the Spanish explorers. This area is one of the oldest in America in terms of its exposure to European explorers. It was first encountered by Ponce de Leon in 1513. Ponce de Leon encountered a group of about 20 canoes of Calusa Native Americans, and there was a battle here. The Spaniards, I think, killed 5 or 6 Native Americans. I think there was 1 Spaniard killed. The local area is referred to as Matanza, meaning slaughter. So it's very much symptomatic of the collision of worlds that occurred between the arrival of Spaniards following Columbus's encounter in 1492 through the 1500s to the present. And of course, today the modern world has very much been a product of this collision. And in many cases, all we see left are the artifacts of the indigenous peoples that inhabited these areas in years before. So I wanted to just give you this announcement, this Florida history here. This is your factoid for this week, so just email me this information. The Calusa Native American burial mound here at the so-called Mound House site in Fort Myers. An ancient artifact of pre-Columbian Native American history, and one of the earliest places mapped by Europeans with the arrival of Ponce de Leon in 1513. And of course, Mendez de Alvis also arrived here as well, and he of course is the Spaniard associated with the establishment of St. Augustine, Florida. So one of the first places explored by Spaniards in the decades following the arrival of Christopher Columbus in the Caribbean. And so a piece of ancient local history here in southwestern Florida. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the discussion forum. And be sure to email me that factoid no later than Wednesday by midnight. Let's have a great week. All right, everybody?